So while I'm in the gym, pumping iron, working out, I get a freaking email that blew my mind. Almost stopped the workout. Let me give y'all a hint of what's about to come. They're alleging that Durk had somebody from OTF or somebody from OTF who's defending Durk is threatening a witness family member. That's number one. Number two, they really don't want to let them lyrics go. And they got a secret song from Lil Durk, but it won't be put in there. But the lyrics are insane. And I think the big three. True Feeling is still pressing to get this thing dismissed. And they like, nah, and we don't want you to get the jury's transcripts as far as the grand jury. Man, sit back, relax. This is going to be a long read, but trust me, it is well worth it. Let's go. Listen, if you have not watched the previous video, go back and watch the previous video because exactly what I said is exactly what's happening. Bruh, True Feeling just pissed off, and I mean big time pissed off the feds. Let's go. I want y'all to pay attention to this right here. All right. Bad circle, but it is what it is. Attorneys for plaintiff, United States of America, United States District Court for the Central District of California, United States of America, plaintiff Durk Banks, a.k.a. Lil Durk, a.k.a. Mustafa Abdul Malak, a.k.a. Blood. Then it says right here, government's opposition to defendant Banks' motion to dismiss indictment. And I have a crazy theory about why they just did this. And I ain't gonna hold you. If this is true, there's only two things that's gonna happen. Either Durk is going to be fried or True Feeling is the genius that we've all painted him out to be, or just me. I don't know. Plaintiff, United States of America, by and through its counsel of record, the United States Attorney for the Central District of California and Assistant United States Attorney, Ian Gregory Daniel, hereby files its opposition to defendant's motion to dismiss first superseding indictment. This filing is based upon the attached memorandum of points and authorities, the files and records in this case, and such further evidence and argument as the court may permit, dated May 19, 2025. All right, respectfully submitted. I don't know what Kel's name is, Bilal, and then Christina, and then Ian, Gregory, Daniel, Assistant United States Attorneys. So when y'all see me do the Diddy trial and it says ASUA, there you go, Assistant United States Attorneys. Hooey, this is going to get a little crazy. There's going to be some parts in which I may skip, but we'll see. So they're looking at the table of authorities right here. They're basically listing what you're going to be able to go and look for to prove their point. Memorandum of points and authorities. Introduction. Defendant is charged with murder for hire, stalking resulting in death, and other crimes arising from a permeated execution-style murder that occurred on a busy street corner in Los Angeles. Among other things, the indictment charges that defendant directed and financed 6 hitmen to travel across the country to hunt and kill his rival, TB. TB is Tyquan Bowman, a.k.a. Quando Rondo. Once the co-conspirators arrived in Los Angeles, the hitmen used 2 vehicles to stalk TB for hours before ambushing TB's vehicle at a gas station in broad daylight, killing SR. That's Lil Pop. On April 18, 2025, defendant filed a motion seeking to dismiss the first superseding indictment, FS1, taking issue with an introductory allegation that alleged defendant commercialized SR's murder through certain violent rap lyrics about green-lighting a murder. Docket 135 at 1 through 3, 10 at N1. As set forth below, defendants claim that his music prompted his indictment is categorically false, as evidenced by the return of the second superseding indictment, SS1, which removed the disputed introductory allegation and contains no reference to defendant's violent lyrics. The grand jury's return of SS1 makes it clear defendant is not on trial for his lyrics or his music. He is on trial because he directed, orchestrated, and finance the brazen murder plot at issue in this case. Accordingly, defendant's motion should be denied because it is moot following SS1. But even if mootness does not apply, it does. The motion falls to cite any legitimate basis to dismiss the indictment or unseal grand jury transcripts. Oh, they trying to keep them transcripts on pause. All right. Particularly in this murder case where witnesses and their family members have already been threatened. Damn. Indeed, the compelling need to continue protecting witnesses alone justifies denying defendants' meritless request to unseal the sensitive proceedings before the grand jury. Background. Defendant control and leadership of OTF. Defendant is the leader of a Chicago-based organization called Only the Family, or OTF, docket 147, SS1 at introductory allegation 1. The SS1 alleges that in addition to producing hip-hop music, OTF is comprised of individuals who engage in violence, including murder and assault, at defendant's direction. ID, in furtherance of his control of OTF to exact revenge on his rivals, defendant is alleged to have placed bounties on individuals that he and other OTF members wanted to kill, including TB. ID at count 1, B1. See also docket 105, example 3, under seal at 12 through 13, describing bounties. In addition to directing violence against his rivals, defendant and OTF members are also alleged to have engaged in witness intimidation. See docket 105, example 2, under seal at 18 through 19, 4. And it says right here, in connection with defendant's detention hearing, the government submitted evidence related to certain threats to witnesses. In this case, see docket 105, government's December 2024 brief in support of defendant's detention, example 2, under seal at 1819. On May 14, 2025, defendant filed an appeal of Judge Donahue's detention order to this court, which will be heard on the same date as defendant's motion to dismiss, June 2nd, 2025. The government will submit its opposition to defendant's appeal by May 27, 2025, which will incorporate example 2 from docket 105. Unless otherwise noted, the factual allegations are based on the SS1 as discussed below. The SS1 is materially similar to the defendant's namely stalking resulting in death in violation of 18 U.S.C. SS 22618, 2A, B, 2261B1, and 2. The government removed the disputed introductory allegation that referenced defendant's rap lyrics, meaning we took an L with the rap lyrics, but we gonna bring them hell on our second go around. Example, evidence collected in this case shows defendant allegedly placed a bounty to solicit the murder of a family member of a witness. What? Damn. And that another OTF member called the family member of a witness in an alleged effort to intimidate the witness, CID. Defendant's daily rivalry with TB. As alleged in SS1 in November 2020, DB, Devon Bennett, aka King Von, a high-ranking OTF member and close friend of defendant, was murdered following a physical altercation with TB at a nightclub in Atlanta, Georgia. SS1 an introductory allegation 3. After the murder, defendant made clear in coded language. Y'all pay attention to that part, because that's the fight right there. Part of it. That's one of the biggest things, though. That he would pay a bounty to anyone who took part in killing TB for his role in DB's murder. On August 18, 2022, defendant and his co-conspirators learned that TB was in Los Angeles. ID at count 1, overt act 2. In response, defendant allegedly orchestrated and financed his co-conspirators' travel to Los Angeles to kill TB. ID at overt acts 3 through 7. Indeed, around the time that a Chicago-based co-conspirator booked flights for 5 of the hitmen to travel from Chicago to California for the murder, defendant attempted to conceal his involvement by telling the co-conspirator, "Don't book no flights under no names involved with me." ID at overt act 6. Now, I ain't gonna lie, that's pretty bad, but you know what I always say about that one. As those 5 co-conspirators traveled to Los Angeles, defendant and another co-conspirator traveled on a private jet to the Los Angeles area, ID at overt act 3. After arriving in Los Angeles, defendant's co-conspirators used 2 cars to track, stalk, and kill TB as TB drove around Los Angeles with his entourage, including SR, ID at overt acts 15 through 22. After hours of stalking TB and his companions, 3 of defendant's co-conspirators cornered TB at a crowded gas station on the afternoon of August 19th. ID at overt act 23. There, the co-conspirators ambushed TB's vehicle and fired multiple rounds towards TB's car, striking and killing SR. Later that afternoon, 5 of defendant's co-conspirators flew back to Chicago. ID at overt act 27. The indictment and defendant's attempt to flee the country. On October 17, 2024, the grand jury returned an indictment charging 5 defendants, co-conspirators with crimes arising from the murder, including murder for hire and conspiracy to commit murder for hire resulting in death in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1958A, see docket 1. Although defendant was not yet named or charged in the original indictment, he was referenced throughout the indictment as co-conspirator 1. Specifically, the original indictment alleged that defendant was a member or associate of OTF. ID at introductory allegation 1, 2, defendant placed a bounty on TB following DB's murder. ID at 2. See also ID at count 1, overt act 1. And 3, defendant would place bounties on individuals that he and other OTF members wanted to kill. ID at count 1, B1. In the early hours of October 24th, 2024, federal and local law enforcement executed multiple search warrants at locations associated with members of OTF in Chicago area and arrested the 5 charged co-conspirators. See criminal complaint at 4. Soon after law enforcement executed the warrants, the FBI learned that defendant had been booked on 3 international flights, including at least 1 to 2 non-extradition country. Defendant skipped the first 2 flights and was arrested when he showed up to board a private jet scheduled to leave the United States a short time later. ID at 9 through 10. We'll go through here real quick. The criminal complaint charging defendant Banks was filed in case number 2:24 MJ 605, which has since been merged into the criminal case. The first superseded indictment. On November 7, 2024, the grand jury returned the FS1 against defendant and his co-conspirators. Docket 27. The FS1 identified defendant as co-conspirator 1 and alleged that he formed and was the leader of OTF, a group of individuals who engaged in violence, including murder and assault at the direction of defendant Banks and to maintain their status in OTF. And introductory allegations 1. In addition to the allegations set forth in the original indictment, the FS1 also specified that defendant orchestrated the murder plot. Among other things, the grand jury alleged that at defendant's direction, his co-conspirators traveled from Chicago to Los Angeles to murder TB. ID at 4, count 1. At defendant's direction, his co-conspirators used 2 cars to track, stalk, and attempt to kill TB. ID at 5. And at defendant's direction, defendant Grant obtained the cars, ski masks, and firearms that killers used to stalk and attempt to kill TB. ID at count 1. B3. The FS1 also included an introductory allegation that defendant commercializes violence through rap lyrics about greenlighting a murder. Introductory allegations stated the following. Following the attempted murder of TB and the murder of SR, defendant Banks sought to commercialize SR's death by rapping about his revenge on TB with music that explicitly referenced audio from the news clip taken shortly after SR's murder, where TB screamed, "No, no," after seeing SR's dead body. Told me location, got that addict, go, got the location, go, green light, go, look on the news and see your son screaming, "No, no, pussy." Now we know that that's a fan edit. The government obtained the second superseding indictment after the defendant attempted to promote a false narrative that he was indicted and detained because of his music, which means y'all didn't want to let it go. On April 18, 2025, defendant filed his motion to dismiss the FS1, claiming that the rap lyrics at issue were authored before SR's murder, and thus he alleges he could not have been rapping about greenlighting this murder. Docket 135, shortly after filing the motion, defendant and others attempted to promote a false narrative that defendant had been indicted because of his music. Well, it is part of the reason. Y'all just had to give it up. Not because he allegedly spearheaded the violent murder plot at issue here. As a result, the government removed the disputed introductory allegation and obtained the SS1 on May 1st, 2025. However, just like every iteration of the indictment before it, the SS1 alleges that defendant caused, directed, and orchestrated the execution-style murder of SR on a busy street corner in Los Angeles. CEGID at introductory allegations 1 through 5, count B 1 through 3, and overt acts 1 through 4, 6. For example, defendant's public Instagram page at Lil Durk posted April 29, 2025 that the government presented false evidence to a grand jury to indict him. That isn't justice. We refuse to stay silent as black artists continue to be criminalized for their creativity. See Lil Durk, available at www.instagram.com, real DJCR4YEZTRA/dot. The SS1 also added an additional charge of stalking resulting in death and violence of 18 USC SS 2261A2AB. 2261B1 against all defendants. Defendant's motion to dismiss is moot and meritless. Defendant's motion to dismiss the FS1 should be denied because 1, it was mooted by the grand jury's return of SS1, and 2, in any event, the motion is meritless. The Ninth Circuit has repeatedly held that dismissal of an indictment is a drastic and harsh measure that must be met an extremely high standard and is therefore disfavored. United States versus Black. We're not finna do all of that crap right there. Yeah, it's just a whole bunch of stuff. We'll just say United States versus Black, and then they got United States versus Owen Rogers, and then they have United States versus Landeros, and that's about it. I'm not finna do all of that reading, bro. I'm just not. The SS1's moot defendant's motion. Here, defendant's sole claim is that FS1 should be dismissed because the government allegedly presented false testimony to the grand jury about defendant's violent lyrics. Docket 139, that's 7 through 9. As described below, this claim is meritless. Nonetheless, the grand jury's return of SS1, which removed all references to defendant's lyrics, moots defendant's claim for dismissal. A claim is moot when the issue presented are no longer live or the party's lack of legally cognizable interest in the outcome. United States versus Hoolan. Cleaned up. Because the SS1 removed references to defendant's lyrics, defendant's motion to dismiss the FS1 is no longer a live issue and should be denied. United States versus Herrera. And then denying as moot defendant's motion to dismiss FS1 for abuse of the grand jury process upon return of SS1, United States versus Tangent. Denying as moot defendant's motion to dismiss indictment for deficiencies upon return of SS1, United States versus Nez. Yeah, they went to town on Drew. I ain't gonna hold you. United States versus Baver. And then the United States, April 20th. Similar, like the original indictment and the FS1, the SS makes clear that the grand jury indicted defendant for his conduct, not his status as a rapper or because of the violent lyrics at issue concerning greenlighting rivals. As with all prior iterations of the indictment, the SS1 contains significant material allegations that defendant directed his co-conspirators to travel across the country to stalk and kill one of his rivals. Specifically, it alleges that defendant led OTF, a group of individuals who engaged in violence at defendant's direction, SS1, at introductory allegations 1 through 2. After OTF member DB was murdered, defendant sought revenge. He made it clear to co-conspirators that he would pay a bounty for the killing of TB, who was suspected to be involved in DB's killing. And when defendant and his co-conspirators learned that TB was in Los Angeles, defendant set in motion his plan to execute TB, including by causing and financing his co-defendants to travel to Los Angeles to track, stalk, and kill TB, including one co-conspirator who traveled with defendant on a private jet to Los Angeles area. Count 1B 1 through 3, overt acts 1 through 4, 6. These allegations make clear that defendant used his power, his wealth, and his control over OTF to exact daily revenge on his rival. Accordingly, the grand jury's return of SS1 containing all of these material allegations and none of defendant's lyrics moots his motion to dismiss the FS1. Defendant fails to show any misconduct or prejudice. That's number 2. But even if the motion was not moot, it is. Defendant's accusation of government misconduct and resulting prejudice is baseless. First, the FS1's allegation that defendant commercialized SR's death was neither false nor reckless. Defendant has repeatedly used his pulpit to promote violence, publicly rapping about paying for murders, hunting opponents with machine guns, bounty hunters in Beverly Hills, and other lyrics that have a striking similarity to the modus operandi used to kill SR. Whether or not defendant's lyrics about greenlighting a rival were written before or after SR's death, the release of the song after the murder gave defendant's fans fodder to associate him with the murder. I claim that defendant himself seemed to admit during an interview on a popular podcast. As to prejudice, defendants claim that the lyrics were one of the only 2 pieces of evidence that the first superseding indictment cited against him, docket 139 and P10, completely disregards and belittles the grand jury's findings in all 3 indictments that defendant was the organizer and leader of this calculated murder plot. See section 3(1). The FS1's single reference to defendant's lyrics in an introductory allegation caused no prejudice considering 1. the numerous material allegations that defendant directed this revenge killing, and 2. the grand jury's confirmation when it returned the SS1 that defendant was charged for his murderous conduct, not his lyrics. The court should deny motion to dismiss. We'll go back to right here where it says, for example, defendant was featured on another artist song in which he raps, I don't want no niggas you catch, I want the one I paid for. Trolling ass, we shot your homie. Gucci Mane, Rumors, Lil Durk, available at whatever the hell. Then he says right here, popping traffic, we in Cali ride through Beverly Hills with choppers, dying to see the oppas. Bounty hunters, we ready to crack that little bitch down to get her off, although Scoon his ass does not appear to have been officially released by defendant. The lyrics are authentic as the government sees the audio file from co-conspirators' cellular phone pursuant to a federal search warrant, which has been produced to the defense. See Bates Media 638. So the feds got unreleased Lil Durk music. And then it says, and this is funny as hell, because academics, you accuse a couple of people of being the feds and getting people in trouble. But here we go right here. In May 2023, defendant appeared on a well-known podcast where he tactically admitted his involvement in the killing of SR, specifically after being asked about his rivalry with TB. Response to the interview's question about whether defendant was triggered by the Slide for Vine comments, a reference to sliding or exacting revenge for OTF member DB's death, defendant coyly responded, "For some reason, I just don't see the comments no more." Whew. And that's the reason y'all, for some odd reason, might be the water. We're here though. See Lil Durk's realest interview ever. Last interview on Off the Record with Academics, DJ Academics, video available at www. I ain't finna do all that. Defendant's request for grand jury's transcripts is also moot in Maryland. I don't think so, but they're going to try to spin it the way they're going to spin it. I think the judge is going to let this one go. And the only reason I'm saying this now is because I know I'm going to forget it in my final in my reaction to this. Grand jury's secrecy exists for a reason. Indeed, the proper functioning of our grand jury system depends on it. United States versus Douglas Oil. This is specifically true in cases like this one where witnesses have been threatened and protecting their safety is paramount. The charged conduct at issue, defendant allegedly dispatching 6 hitmen to kill a rival located in another part of the country, also showcases the palpable danger to witnesses and those co-conspirators perceived as impediments to their freedom. As the Supreme Court has repeatedly held, if pre-indictment proceedings were made public, many prospective witnesses would be hesitant to come forward voluntarily, knowing that those against whom they testify would be aware of that testimony. Moreover, witnesses who appear before the grand jury would be less likely to testify fully and frankly, as they would be open to retribution as well as inducements. ID at 219C, also Costello versus United States, explaining the impact of granting requests to challenge evidence presented to a grand jury, noting the resulting delay would be great. And the result of such a rule would be that before trial, on the merits, a defendant could always insist on a kind of preliminary trial to determine the competency and adequacy of the evidence before the grand jury. Rule 6E3 provides narrow exceptions, to this bedrock rule of secrecy, permitting disclosure of grand jury matters only in limited circumstances. When a defendant requests disclosure of grand jury matters, the court may attribute disclosure upon showing that a ground may exist to dismiss the indictment because of a matter that occurred before the grand jury. Fed or Crim P6E 3E2. Thus, defendant's right to access to grand jury materials turn on whether he meets the standard to dismiss an indictment based on conduct occurring before the grand jury. See United States versus Murray. Defendants did not show a particularized need for grand jury materials where they claimed misconduct would not have compelled the dismissal of the first superseding indictment. Moreover, the Supreme Court has consistently construed Rule 6E to require strong showing of particularized need for grand jury materials before any disclosure will be permitted. United States versus Sales, NG Inc. The standards the district court should follow when lifting the secrecy of grand jury proceedings are: 1, that the desired material will avoid a possible injustice; 2, that the need for disclosure is greater than the need for continued secrecy; and 3, that only the relevant parts of the transcript should be disclosed. I think ultimately that's what the judge is going to do anyways. United States versus Plummer. Defendant has not and cannot show particularized need for grand jury materials because the motion was mooted by the SS1 and no grounds exist to dismiss indictment. Importantly, there's a presumption of regularity in grand jury proceedings, United States versus R Enterprise. Even in the context of an allegation of government misconduct, the presumption of regularity, which attachments to grand jury proceedings, still abides. Hamling versus United States versus Buffington. An indictment regular on its face and returned by a legally constituted and unbiased grand jury is presumed to be valid. The party challenging this presumption faces a heavy burden. So, last freaking page, bro. I'm glad y'all here, man. If you can hit the like button, if you made it this far, man, give yourself a reward because I know y'all gonna have something to say. So please hit the like button if you can. If you want to get it popping, we're gonna do that. 6E3E2, Section 3.1. Even if the motion was not moot, defendant's claims would not have compelled the dismissal of the FS1 given the lack of misconduct and the absence of any prejudice. See Murray 751 F2D at 1534, Section 3.2. Accordingly, defendant fails to meet his heavy burden to invade the grand jury's proceedings. Finally, Even if the defendant could show a particularized need for grand jury materials, he has not. He fails to establish that any need outweighs the need for continued secrecy. Plummer at 806, preserving the grand jury secrecy and independence is paramount in this case. Defendant has already shown he is willing to use his power to continue pursuing violence, including allegedly offering a bounty to kill a family member of a witness. See docket 105, example 2 under seal at 18 through 19. Also see docket 105, example 1 at 12, affidavit describing that defendant offered money to kill those responsible for his brother's murder, and more specifically, offering to pay money for any gangster disciple that is killed, which doesn't make any sense. And evidence collected has also shown that one of defendant's OTF members have already attempted to intimidate a witness. So somebody from OTF basically is threatening a witness. Quite simply, the Supreme Court's warning that the release of grand jury materials may result in witness retribution and inducements. Douglas Oil is near certain in calculated murder case like this. The court should accordingly deny defendant's request for grand jury transcripts. Conclusion. For the foregoing reasons, the government respectfully requests that this court deny the motion to dismiss and defendant's request for the release of grand jury transcripts. Yeah, Durk got a uphill, for real uphill battle.
Don't do that. Don't say that.
But I will say this. If Durk allegedly has somebody that's willing to whack the family members of a witness, why is he not being charged with witness intimidation as well? Yeah. Just saying. We watched YNW Borland get hit with the thing. That's what got his bond revoked. That's why he's sitting in jail. So when we're looking at this, let's be fair, square, obvious, and honest, all right? Why are they not charging them with that? The rules kind of get muddied a little bit because the feds play dirty. Drew Fillon had pissed off the freaking DA, which some of y'all may be like, bruh, that's stupid. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why the hell not? See, some people, when they angry, they'll show you everything. They'll start fighting wrong. They'll start trying to overhand swing. And that's exactly what the feds are doing, in my opinion. Now, if you disagree, please type it in the comments and tell me how wrong I am. But that whole entire witness intimidation stuff, we heard about it in the first indictment. We really didn't hear about it in the second one. And then the fact that the feds decided to say, we're going to bring up the lyrics and we're going to bring up the plane tickets, after they decided to kind of leave that out in the second superseding indictment, which gets rid of both of those, lets me know that they trying to pile it on Lil Durk because they have to. See, the feds are moving like this. We might got a real fight on our hands. That boy from Georgia, yeah, he a little different. But they done already battled him with Gaulden versus California. So you have that. We gonna see. Now, does it sound way worse this time around? I'd be a fool to say, hell no, I don't. Hell yeah, it does. But the question remains, if you're alleging these things, why are you not charging these things? Why is Durk not being charged with that? Because I believe the witness is making it up. I just do. I think the witness is not being real, not being truthful. It's just sitting up here trying to basically pile more on Durk because more than likely they don't like him. Do I have an idea of who it is? Yeah. Will I ever say it? Hell no. I ain't listen. As far as speculation, the people and all this crap and everything like that, well, my history of going toes with the feds of Chicago, 1,000,000% I ain't going toes with the feds in California. That's why I never revealed two of the guys that I knew that was about to testify in the Diddy trial. Because I'm like, bruh, I may know, but I ain't putting that out. I don't want no static with y'all. So there's that. But let's be fair. If you think Durk is guilty, this helps you. It does. I'm not going to be stupid and naive. If you believe Lil Durk is guilty of all of this stuff, this looks good because what it does is it shows the extremes that Lil Durk is allegedly willing to go. For me, it's basically the feds saying, we didn't want to give up them lyrics, but shoot, we had to. Because even in that description, they said, well, Lil Durk already rapping about this lifestyle and stuff, and this is basically how I get down. And it already happened. So whether it happened after or before he wrote the lyrics, then that's what it is. But he has to remember, aka the feds, Durk rapped the song months before it was put out. He had no idea when the song was going to come out. So there's that. Then here's where it gets a little odd job. You know what I'm saying? Because the feds ain't Ollie with this one. Y'all do know that Durk could have got up out of there after he left Chicago. The feds came like 2 or 3 days later after they already snatched his phone in Chicago. So the feds snatched his phone in Chicago. He don't bounce out. He don't do none of that crap. Just saying. If I was going to run with guilty conscience, I would hurry up and run. Y'all remember when Russell Simmons was alleged to have indulged in his own type of Diddy lifestyle? That mother effer is in Dubai still. That nigga ain't never coming back to the United States. So fuck all that. So I'm just saying, in my opinion, hey, run already. Why would you run later? Bassetti Nash, do you think Durk is getting a bond? No. No. But that's not Drew's game. Drew's game is they're still holding on to shit. They're still holding on to stuff. They're not trying to let them all in. They're basically trying to wait until the last minute to give Drew and his team the information. They practically said that. They practically said it. So if I'm the feds, yeah, I want to hold off on this. If I'm Drew, yeah, I want to go get that immediately, homie. It's just a matter of whose tactic is going to be more beneficial. And as it stands right now, the feds have the better tactic. No need to be mad. No need to be upset. It's just the truth. Sprinkle the truth where it needs to be at. But bruh, it is what it is. The Diddy stuff will be dropping damn near immediately, 30 minutes damn near after the after the trial is, well, the day is done. So make sure, if you want to help us out, cool. If you don't, then you don't. Make sure you hit that like button and tune right back in about 30 to 40 minutes after the Diddy trial is done. Should be done around like 3 o'clock. So we'll be getting that out to you as fast as possible. And then later on down the line, we'll go ahead and drop some more stuff. If you want to keep up with everything, click right here. And then right here should be the best recommended video. I'll catch you on the next one.